And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science.
I'm very grateful tonight for God's constant guidance. A recent change at the teleconference company this church uses created the need to enter 3 different sets of numbers just to get on the call. Couple that with less functionality for those at the church who moderate the calls and constant billing mistakes, just felt that there must be a better choice out there. In the book, Mary Baker Eddy, Her Spiritual Footsteps, by Gilbert Carpenter, on page 377, he wrote, "When man is in need, the human method is to search until one has found what it is that he needs, but divine metaphysics demands that man establish in thought the realization that now man's every need is met, since man is the offspring of divine principle, love." I use this human method of searching all the time before coming to Plainfield. And even last fall, I spent quite some time trying to find a new teleconference provider, which ultimately led me to feel that it wasn't for me to find. But now with these new issues, 2 things became clear to me. First, it's not right to accept the wrong answer. And second, God already knows what the best answer is. So last week I was washing dishes, praying about this, and the thought came strongly, God does have the answer, and I should be able to go to the computer right now and find it. I shut off the water, dried my hands, and within 5 minutes was signed up to the new service. I'm very grateful for the realization that I can find nothing useful using human methods. Everything good and useful only comes from God, and will only come when I am humbly ready to receive with the right motive. I'm also grateful for everything we have available to use at this church: books, lessons, discussions, practitioners, etc. Because I never knew humanly to search for any of it. Yet when I really needed it, God brought me here. What we have in Christian Science and this church is simply amazing. I'm so grateful for all of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to express my gratitude for this church and its members, for guiding me through the Bible studies, giving me articles to read on the website, for all the contributions to the forum, and for all the wonderful testimonies of healing. Your giving back has deeply blessed me. When I first came here to this church, I had no idea who God was, and I was very sure He wanted nothing to do with me. Little by little, something began to change for me. With the help of my practitioner, I began to learn about God. By the healings I received, I understand that He is gracious and merciful. I learned to trust in God. The Bible came alive to me, and I'm learning to use its lessons in my day-to-day living. Now there's nothing more that I desire but to do God's will. I feel a sense of honor in servitude to Him. He has blessed me so kindly with the chance to experience a new life, a more fulfilling life, the real life I was meant to live. I still have so much to learn, but like it teaches in this week's lesson, I hold tightly to my joy in gratitude to God while I wait for it to unfold. He has been my shield and the wisdom I have needed to overcome the challenges I have faced. I'm discovering that nothing is impossible to God and that He is ever present. I'm so grateful to God and to all of you for reflecting Him in all that you do. I am grateful to my practitioner, who has always been there for me, to guide, to teach, and for using the power of God to heal. I thank God every day for guiding me to this church so that I can know Him and serve Him. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane from Michigan, go ahead.
I want to say how very fortunate I am and how much I love God for the blessings that he has given me. And lately, I have been able to lose 20 pounds. And I have been very overweight for quite a long time. I've been going up and down too much. And it is just recently when I talked to the practitioner that he told me that I should think of weight as spiritual. I should be thinking not of how much I needed to put food in my mouth, but that I needed to be thinking of God and his love for all of us, and to change my thinking. And I have managed to do that pretty well. I am very grateful that I have lost some weight, finally. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for God answering prayer, and indeed he does answer prayer. I've been really thinking which gratitude to give tonight, but this morning it came to me strongly to share something that I have known for some time. I was walking and the thought came, why is error everywhere, or appears to be everywhere? And I remember that this is what I used to struggle with. You listen to the news, it's all nothing but trouble here all over the world. But through prayer, as the readings pointed to, through heartfelt prayer for God to enlighten, to bring some light into all this, he did answer my prayer. And I found out that error appears to be everywhere because God, truth, is everywhere. Because truth is everywhere, the lies are the problems that we face. And it also led me to see that because of the truth being always present, whenever a problem comes up, all I needed to do was to pause for a moment and to know that right here, right where this trouble seems to be, the truth is. And with confidence, trust, as I read and prayed more, to really be convinced that God is real. God is all power, all presence, all action, all wisdom, and really took that into my heart. It became clearer and clearer that whenever there is a problem, it is only a lie about the existing truth. And I could use what I knew, I'm learning through Christian Science, to make that error a nothing, to see its emptiness, its powerlessness. And this way has helped me to gain or to realize the dominion that is really here for everyone, for us to see error's nothingness and to be free of it. I thank God so much for everything I've learned through Christian Science. Thank you so much for those readings about prayer, because it is indeed unceasing prayer when our thinking is right. And thanks for the service, the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Heidi from Maryland, go ahead. Heidi, we don't hear you here. You may be on mute on your phone.
It was a mistake.
Okay. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
Good evening. Tonight, I'd just like to express my gratitude to God for all the harmony we experienced on a recent trip my family and I took to Europe. I've learned through this church that it is important to pray, to keep your guard up and your thought up when on a trip or a vacation, and not take a vacation from God, which is what I've done in the past. So keeping God first and acknowledging his presence and guidance was something that I was really trying to establish in my thought. We visited 3 countries, and it involved a lot of train travel, including changing multiple trains with a few minutes to spare between each one. And I'd just like to specifically give gratitude for all the love and helpfulness expressed to us by strangers. It's often difficult when you're visiting a foreign country and you don't know the language and you don't know where you're going. And we had people approach us in train stations and on the street to offer directions. One couple offered to pay for a locker in the train terminal when we came up short with euros. And we just met lovely and kind people everywhere we went. And they were angels, ideas of God, who helped us along the way. And I just still think of how wonderfully we were guided by them, by these angels. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much for the readings tonight. They were just beautiful.
And thank you.
Tonight I'd like to say how grateful I am to have found Christian Science which heals, and to realize, to learn that we have the divine right to say no to the devil whenever the devil tries to tell us that we're sick or otherwise less than God's perfect child. I remember very vividly an experience one morning. I woke up sick to my stomach and nauseous, and my first desire was to just curl up in a little ball and go back to sleep. But that week, in our lesson, there was a statement from Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy that said something like, when the symptoms of illness first appear, rise in rebellion against them. And that came very clearly to me at that time. So I resisted the temptation to curl up in a little ball and go back to sleep. I got up, I started to read our lesson, and immediately I started to feel better. And by the end of reading the lesson, I felt a lot better. And I prayed to God and asked God to give me the strength to do whatever He wanted me to do that day. And I had a full day doing what I firmly believed God wanted me to do. I did some physical exercise, some hard work. And by the end of the day, I felt stronger and more refreshed than I had felt all day. God healed me of those symptoms. I'm so grateful for Christian Science, for the help that I have received from practitioners in this church, and for what I have learned here about who and what God is and His great love for all mankind. And thank you very much for the readings tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those readings tonight. Solomon was a very wise man and humble. And great to be reminded it all comes from God through prayer and humility. I had a healing of type 2 diabetes, but then I had not supposed to, but I had a relapse. I think I let my thought drop. And so I got help in our church, a practitioner, and I was told something. One was wisdom. I wasn't handling the world thought about diabetes. This keeps flooding you on TV, and if anybody ever hears that you've been involved in it, they tag it on you like forever. So I hadn't been handling that in days, but then I started. And I was given to Eustace to work with his thoughts on body and treatment of diabetes, to dwell in love. And I'm sure I started with that, and I felt that just thinking about all the love that was around me, including this church and its members, and all the love that was in my home, and the kind thoughts people had for the kind things that I had done. And I tried to make it a policy to do it daily. And I did. And I've been feeling better and better. Went to a doctor for a periodic checkup this week, and he says, it's utterly amazing, using a word someone else used recently here, how much progress you've had since when you started. He could not believe that from when I first met him, or where I first started with the problem, that everything could have changed so drastically based on my tests. I thank God, one, for love that's here, and the wisdom that's shared and taught, and the wonderful works from the books that we have. It's truly a strengthening place. It's a great lesson that I'm learning, and I'll keep it. Thank God for Mary Baker Eddy.
Thank you.
This evening I'd like to express my gratitude to Plainfield for all that has been done to teach the Bible and its pure science. It's been just over a year now since I discovered Plainfield, and the changes in my life have been profound. This teaching here has opened my heart to feeling God's presence and a deeper honor for Mary Baker Eddy. They show here, by demonstrating and teaching, what it means to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. I am grateful that I have been told to commit to memory and my heart the 91st Psalm and other important citations by a Plainfield practitioner. It has been a saving grace many times. As shared in a roundtable in the past, when under fire, find something to memorize to help break the focus on the problem and keep the focus on the truth, God. Doing this with the understanding that I have been given and growing here has blessed me tremendously. And now I no longer am just saying words, but I understand and feel what I'm praying. And so I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to express gratitude for my life being saved in this church. About 20 years ago, I was rushed to a hospital hemorrhaging. When I arrived at the hospital, they did a test and my hemoglobin was 2, and the normal is 16. A Christian Science practitioner from this church was called and prayer started. Well, the doctor knew of this practitioner, and he was willing to not do, the normal things, but to let prayer be taken. Members of this church came into the hospital to visit me. For that matter, I had so many visitors, they had a little waiting room that they set up for all my visitors and me. One of my healing parts was I had a very big appetite. I had lost a lot of weight very quickly, and people brought food in, and the love and the prayers of the practitioner, I was healed. And the doctor said to me, your life was saved by that lady. He did not realize what she was, but it was the practitioner, and he gave the credit to the prayers of the practitioner to God. I am so grateful for this healing. I just feel wonderful for the last 20 years. I've had little problems here and there, but my life was really saved. I have energy. I'm able to work for God. I cannot be grateful enough for the good that has been given to me through God and the prayers of practitioner and this church. And thank you for the readings.
Thank you.
would just like to say a word of deep gratitude for the atmosphere of love divine. The atmosphere of love divine that pervades this church and the members of it. It's such a great blessing to be here instead of in Maryland right now, and to find this wonderful, beautiful, loving atmosphere. And I noticed this wonderful quotation on the church wall from Jesus Christ. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And that's what Plainfield has done for me. I came here 3 years ago, having suffered deep depressions for 5 years. And with the help of my practitioner and other members and the joy of this wonderful church, I was quickly healed and brought into the joy of the Lord in a way that I cannot even express. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Day from Maryland, go ahead.
I want to share gratitude for learning through Christian Science that prayer is a continuous conversation with God, that it's important that I seek His will in all that I pray for, and for the proof that the greatest results come from doing so sincerely. 2 years ago, I moved out of state for the first time, a little while after I began joining the Plainfield Unity Watches. I read the criterion for membership under the members section of the Plainfield website by Mary Baker Eddy that says, when one sees Christian Science as the only way, he is ready for church membership, and there is no other requirement. I had been attending a branch church and studying Christian Science for a little over 10 years, and I was confident that I met the requirement, but I was very reluctant and even afraid to become a member of anything ever again. While moving out on my own, I was constantly asking God to show me what to do along the way. And the day after I settled in my apartment, I prayed continuously while walking around my new neighborhood to find the nearest post office box to mail my completed Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent membership application. Once I found a post box, I paused for a minute just to be sure before dropping it in. This assured me that God knows exactly what I need and that He will always give it to me if I let Him. I needed to understand God better and to be closer to Him, and being a member of this church has fulfilled these needs. The greatest blessings in my life have resulted from this, and I am forever grateful to God, Mrs. Eddy, our practitioners, and everyone contributing to this church's life-changing mission. Thank you so much for tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Good evening. I would be remiss not to share my gratitude for being here tonight. It seemed, coming from Pennsylvania to here would be a short journey, but there were many plans to be made, many people to take care of, and it looked like there were many roadblocks. Even the car we were to drive seemed to appear to have problems, but that was all taken care of by Saturday. A babysitter was found, help was gotten for other people, so we could be here tonight. I know it was prayer, and I have been praying earnestly for an understanding heart. Plainfield is something that is a miracle to me, and I am so grateful. When we got off the expressway, I started to even have a stomach ache. I was so nervous about it, and I don't have one now. Thank you for Plainfield. Thank you for all of you. And thank you for God and Christian Science.
Thank you.
239-597.
Someone's calling from area 239-597. Please announce yourself and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Bruce. For quite some time, I felt like I was clinging to the edge of a dangerous cliff. I prayed to God with all my heart to help me, and a week later I felt impelled to call a practitioner here. The practitioner's strong, Christly love is helping me to crawl back to God. It hasn't been easy, and the other morning I was weeping over the years I felt I'd wasted. Later that morning, a verse from the Bible came to me. I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten. That gave me hope and such a sense of God's love for me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Since then, each day, truths that have been taught here and that I can use are flooding back to me. I'm so grateful for this church, its services and website, and the help from the practitioner here. It's been a lifeline to me. And I thank you all for the good that you are doing there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight we have a testimony sent from someone signing themselves a listener. I'd like to give gratitude for what I am learning at Plainfield. I've been a Christian Scientist for several decades, and for years I wondered why I had chronic problems that weren't being healed. Since finding Plainfield, I've discovered the answer to that question. Unless we are consciously striving to be Christ-like in our conversation, listening to God's direction, living in obedience to God by purifying our thoughts and actions, and remembering to be grateful for all His blessings, we are Christian Scientists in name only. Thank you, Plainfield, for waking me up to this. I am so grateful for the spiritual rebirth I am experiencing. First, tonight, I would like to express my gratitude for those beautiful readings tonight, beautifully read, and also for the beautiful, heartfelt testimonies. In our lesson this week, there is a story. I'm not sure it's ever been in a lesson, or if it has, not often. And it's the story of the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians and how he had a thorn in his side. Many years ago, when I was sort of a novice to this church, new to this church, and I had many problems that I was working through. I was asked to do something for the church. I forget. It might have even been just to give a testimony, and my excuses were, well, you know, I had this problem. I hadn't overcome this problem, and the practitioner at that time said, well, remember Paul, what a great apostle he was. He had a thorn in his side. Did that keep him from testifying? Did that keep back his great works for God? It did not. And that was the end of that story. But I've never forgotten it. Along with that story of Paul, it said that he prayed thrice and he still wasn't healed. And with that thorn, it seemed to be a reminder that in his weakness, his only strength was in God, and that he learned to rejoice in infirmity. Well, I was thinking, certainly in my own life, and I'm sure of lives of others, we perhaps have had that thorn in our side, something we've prayed for to be relieved of, and perhaps it hasn't been relieved right away. And yet to think of what Paul did, it didn't hold back in any way his testimony for God. And he rejoiced in his infirmity. And it also forced him on his knees, when you have something like that, to know that without God you are nothing, and to rely even more wholeheartedly on God. When things are going fine, when you don't have that thorn in your side, you might just be sailing along thinking you can do it without God. But when you have that reminder, it forces you to know who is doing it, and it always is God. On our website, there's a beautiful article under General Study, one that I've always loved and thought about often. The name of it is Sight, and it's by an A. Kroger, and it is about someone who was born blind, and with Christian Science help, they received their sight. And part of it's a letter from a practitioner, the article is, and part of the letter reads, to this blind person, he's saying, "You may rejoice that you have come to the point in your journey from sense to soul where divine love is forcing you to lay hold on what Mrs. Eddy says in Science and Health. Quote, metaphysics resolves things into thoughts and exchanges the objects of sense for the ideals of soul." So often in our experiences, when we are praying and working for something that doesn't yield right away, there are more lessons to be learned, and certainly this is a lesson. In the case of this person blind, it was explained that the seeing, the sight, is not in matter. It is in God, wholly in God. That's a very radical thought, and yet it is true. And the practitioner was telling this person to rejoice that you've come to this point in your journey, that now you're going to go a step higher, to realize that you are not in matter, but in spirit. And what a wonderful thing that is. So for anyone tonight who thinks they have a thorn in their side, know that there is an answer. We certainly believe in healing here, and healing does come as we persist. And as we journey forward, knowing that rising from sense to soul and learning more wholly that we are in spirit, not in matter, our healing will come. And in fact, it is here, right now, because the truth is, you always have been perfect in God and always will be. I'm so grateful for these lessons. I'm so grateful for dear Mrs. Eddy, our wonderful Bible stories, all that we are learning in this church.
Thank you.